What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Bootleg Football Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Coleman, here with my wonderful co-host, EJ Snyder, and we are talking all-ceiling team today. Think of it like our Ball of Clay episode from last year, but on steroids. So we got a long show, a lot to talk about, some names that you've probably either not heard of or just not heard us mention yet, because we got some guys way down the board that we're going to talk about. So jam-packed episode here in the middle of draft season. EJ, I know you're probably still rocking seltzer for draft season. Keep your mind and body right. I made myself a spiced Demerara Old Fashioned, bringing the cocktails back to the show for the first time in a while. So I'm feeling good. How are you?
I'm good. Do you know that you hooked our buddies at Rockpile Report on all kinds of cocktailing now, and they hold
I converted them.
They hold you fully responsible.
Yeah, he's like, I bought a cocktail smoker because of you. It's your fault.
It's totally true. I was on Rockpile a couple of weeks back, and Chris was smoking a cocktail, and I was like, huh. Ooh. And he's like, oh yeah, it's all Brett. I was like, oh, I know. So no, I am not smoking cocktails tonight. Yes, I am drinking some black cherry seltzer, and we're gonna rock this episode. This is fun stuff. It serves several of our purposes. It lets us talk about some of the players we love way down the board that, like you said, we haven't talked about. Lets us work in one of the great draft cliches of all time, right? People talk about, guy's got a high ceiling, or guy's got untapped potential. We're going to talk about all those guys today and what would happen if they actually hit that potential.
And I can tell that people really love draft season because we have 39 new patrons over on Patreon this week alone. Too many to even name. I think they're all coming over because they wanted to see our position rankings. We dropped offensive tackle and wide receiver last week. We're dropping linebacker and tight end this week. And then I can't remember which ones we're doing after that. But, we're going to get through every single position and kind of drop our top 7-ish per position group. So again, if you want to get a sneak peek of that and kind of like little mini reports that we've got there, little write-ups for all of our top guys and kind of our top 2 tiers at every single position, you can find that over on the Patreon. You also get merch discounts. Whenever we do our next kind of patron-only Q&A, you'll get access to that. So lots of goodies over on the Bootleg Patreon. Thank you to all 39 of you that joined this week. Just absolutely insane.
And to all the rest of you, you're welcome for not reading off all 39 of them.
Yes. We don't want to turn a 2-hour podcast into a 3-hour podcast. And speaking of that podcast, I'm going to ask you, EJ, to give a little quick primer on what is the all-ceiling team.
Yeah, well, can't thank everybody enough. We put out the Other Guys podcast last, and that was about where you can find guys with similar skills later in the draft. People really resonated to the format. All of you have commented on YouTube and Twitter and reached out to us and said, such a cool episode. Love it. Love hearing these names. So just kind of riffed off of that and thought, hey, how can we put together another episode? And like you said, this is like Balls of Clay that we did last year, which was really just sort of physical freaks, a continuation, if you want to, of Bruce Feldman from the Athletics Freaks list that he puts out every year. Balls of Clay was our shot at, hey, who are the guys that have amazing amounts of physical potential? And this is kind of the next evolution. This is, again, answering the question that you hear all the time. Oh, this is a high ceiling guy. What does that mean? Like, what if he achieved his eventual potential as a player? What if he actually became that good? What would happen? And who are some of the players in this draft that have that? We're really going to have 2 or more in bootleg classic style for each position. And one is sort of the chalk pick, the person that label gets attached to all the time at that position. We're going to start right off at quarterback, and you can probably guess who that's going to be. But then we wanted to dip into that bag of players that we really love talking about in the later rounds and pick a down the board guy, a DTB guy that maybe you haven't heard of, that again has a lot of gifts, and it looks like, man, if they get with a good coach or again hit a good landing spot and realize that potential, they could be a very good player in the league really quickly.
And I think we are going to start off with quarterback there because everybody can guess who both of our chalk pick are going to be. And by the way, some of these, we're just going to have two names because we're literally just going to be in agreement, like hyper-focused, like this is the guy and this is the DTB guy. Some of these positions, we're going to have like 5 or 6 names because you and I are going to have totally different lists based on how we value people. For quarterback, you and I agreed on both counts. Malik Willis is the chalk pick for, oh my God, if he hits his ceiling, he's going to be in that, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Herbert class of quarterback, the top 5 to 6 guys in the league if he hits that ceiling. And then the down the board guy, somebody who also has tremendous physical gifts and by all accounts is a pretty cool guy that, works hard and wants to get better. He's just not he's not in the same class or discussion as Malik Willis, but if he goes to the right spot, he can, potentially develop into a pretty plus starter here, and that's Carson Strong. I remember when I first saw Carson Strong, God, it might have been September or October, kind of starting off with him. He threw a go ball 55 yards down the field from the far hash, which in college is even wider than the NFL. And the fact that he made that throw in college, which maybe 12 to 13 NFL quarterbacks can do, I immediately in my head was like, well, he's going to have a job in the league. I don't care how high he goes. He's going to have a job in the league because his arm talent is not normal.
All right, I'm gonna blow everybody's reality here because we've talked a lot about Malik, and the short version on Malik, yes, he's one of a handful, 1, 2, maybe 3 guys in this class that have the physical gifts to ascend to that tier if he hits the ceiling. Lots of ink spilled about Malik Willis with good reason. We're not going to talk about him a ton. I'm going to rearrange everybody's perspective on Carson Strong because what you said is absolutely true. He has throws on tape from this year that no other quarterback in this class can make, including Malik.
In terms of velocity plus touch and timing and all that.
You're looking at 45-yard out routes to the far sideline off the hash.
Yeah.
Balls that, again, Kenny Pickett can't throw that ball without moving. Matt Corral can throw it, but it's going to drop off. He can't throw it like Carson Strong does. So those throws are what attract you to Carson Strong. And what everybody says in the negative category is, well, he can't move, right? He can't move. Here's the kicker. Carson Strong wasn't supposed to play football this year. Carson Strong's doctors told him not to play football this year. Carson Strong's family told him not to play football this year.
I haven't heard about this.
I'm going to rearrange your perspective too. So join the gallery.
Okay.
Everybody told Carson Strong not to play football this year. They told him to take the year off and let his knee heal because he has a condition and apparently the prognosis is fairly good, but it's a long healing time. And if he had the procedure, he was not going to be able to play football this year. Carson Strong asked about how much damage it would do if he played without the procedure this year. And they said, well, it'd be kind of the same. Your leg won't work real well and it's going to hurt like crazy, but it's not going to like screw it up long term. It needs to be fixed anyways. And Carson Strong said, I'm going to go support my teammates. I want to have a year with them. So I'm going to do all the things I need to do. I'm going to take a golf cart around practice sometimes. I'm going to not practice on a bunch of days because I can barely walk. I'm going to walk with a cane. Carson Strong did everything that you saw on tape that attracts you. That go ball that you saw.
Yeah.
On one leg.
I knew his knee was bad, but I didn't think it was like you need like microfracture surgery bad.
Look at his tape. There is tape of him making amazing throws all year long. It's the reason we're talking about him in this conversation. It's the reason Romeo Doubs is on wide receiver lists. It's the reason.
By the way, love him.
Yep. It's
love
the reason
him.
that his tight end is getting a lot of love. I mean, that he's 6'6" and is super athletic. But make no mistake, he is the straw that stirred that team's drink, and he wasn't even supposed to be there. Everybody in his life said, don't play football this year. He said, I'm not going to let my teammates down. So checking the leadership box, huge. Every throw he made, and again, some of the most amazing throws in the class, on one leg. Look at him move in the pocket. You're right. He can't move in the pocket. He's on one leg. There are games where he's literally dragging that thing behind him. Mm-hmm. He's like pegging off it like a pirate, right? And if you're thinking about that, you're like, he can do all that on a 50% base? Huh. What if, and here's the kicker, Carson Strong's not going to do you a lot of good next year. If you're a team that needs to play him this year, draft him and play him, he is not the guy for you. Mm-hmm. If you are a team like Pittsburgh, like Detroit, that has a capable, we're just going to say capable starter that can carry you through this season, and you're not expecting to go to the Super Bowl anyways, and you spend like a 3rd round pick or a late 2nd round pick on Carson Strong, let him get his surgery, let him heal, and just take mental reps, you very well could come out with the best all-around quarterback in this class for a wild value.
I got to do some research on his knee because I thought it was like a degenerative thing.
I mean, again, I'm not a doctor. I know he was told not to play this year by both doctors and family. I know he chose to play anyways. And on top of that, and this is the part where not being a doctor really hurts me, the prognosis when the surgery's done correctly is apparently pretty good, but it's a long healing time. That's the kicker. That was the kicker this year is, hey, if you have it, you're not going to have any season.
Which long healing time tells me microfracture.
Well, could be. Probably. I'm not gonna dive in and say this is how we should fix Carson Strong's knee. What I'm gonna say is, if you fix Carson Strong's knee, and this is the if part, this is why it's a ceiling episode. If you fix his knee and he now has 2 good legs and he has learned everything that he had to learn playing on one leg, because you see him move in the pocket the only way he can, and he still avoided pressure, right? Now, if he had 2 good legs, would he have done that or would he have bolted earlier? Who knows? But he was limited by, I can't run, so I have to just get a sidestep, and then I'm going to, with all upper body, throw this ball 40 yards on a line to my tight end. So with everything he's learned, you give him back 50% of his base? Okay.
So what you're saying is he's perfect for all ceiling team because you really don't know what you're going to get. But if he hits the ceiling...
If he hits the ceiling, he could easily, and I mean easily, and this is with the class with Malik Willis, and you know what I think of Malik, he could easily be the best quarterback because what he's already shown on a 50% base got him in the conversation, right? Yeah. Got him in the conversation as one of the top quarterbacks in this class. He was playing on one leg. That's astounding. So if he gets the fix, it works, and you can give him a year to sit, you're going to get that plus.
All right. I'm on board. I'm intrigued. I'm going to do more research and ask some PTs what they think of this because I'm fascinated by that now. Let's go to running back, where you and I both have the same chalk pick, which is Breece Hall. I mean, how could you
It's hard not to pick him.
Yeah, his combine was ridiculous. All of his numbers are insane. He's like top 10 RAS score for a running back ever.
Yeah, that's the kicker. Is like, where do you put the best athlete from like Pee Wee ball on up through
running back? It's always running back.
It's always running back, right?
Yeah.
Best kid on the team is running back. So all the best athletes go to running back early in their careers. 7th all time at the all athlete position. That's something.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that's like pretty easy to project in a class full of people that are very hard to project, which is why I think that he might not go in the first round, but I do think he'll go off the board very early in the second round because GMs are just going to be like, let's just take Breece Hall because we know he's probably going to be a good football player. Like, if we absolutely don't want to miss, we'll just take Breece Hall. You and I do differentiate on our down the board all ceiling team guys. You've got Jerome Ford, and I have Rachaad White. I'll start with White, who, sub 4.5 speed. He was like high 4.4 speed, which for a running back, definitely plenty. But great size to go with that speed at 6 foot 215. That's like ideal running back proportions. 38-inch vert, 10.5 in the broad, 20 on the bench. Prolific pass catcher. I mean, he's got baby soft hands. Caught almost 50 balls last year at Arizona State. I think he is a true 3-down back with his receiving ability. I think his his top end speed is obviously not the same as Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker, even Pierre Strong, even Pacheco, but I think he still has absolutely enough gas and more than enough burst in the short area. He's kind of like a slashing glider, where he puts that foot in the ground, immediately gets north-south, and he's moving faster than you think he is because he's got kind of like long strides, everything like that. So it's definitely enough speed. He just looks like he's going slower than he actually is moving because of how his gait is. But I think he's a very, very gifted running back. And the fact that he runs a full route tree and he's got great hands, at least for me, means that if he hits a ceiling, he's a 3-down running back with all the athleticism that you could want. And you're going to get him way later in the draft, which is usually kind of the premium spot for getting a 3-down running back.
Yeah, I agree with the value getting him late. And I know a lot of people that are kind of quietly high on him, like, oh man, I kind of low-key love Rachaad White. I'm not as high on his game, but I'm not low on it. Like, again, if you're talking late round running back and your O-line coach or your running game coordinator or your running back coach goes, I think Rachaad White's the guy I can work with, I have no issue with it whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Ford is interesting to me because Cincinnati in general is loaded. There's 3-4 guys on defense. There's 3-4 guys on offense. And Ford kind of gets glossed over a little bit. One, because of positional devaluation. That's the running back, right? They got a quarterback. Yeah, okay, let's talk about him. Oh, they got a crazy wide receiver we're going to talk about. They got this, they got that. Ford kind of gets lost in the wash a little bit, and he shouldn't. Yeah, we've talked a lot about the Alabama running back room and how hard it is to go there and play well. And yeah, well, Ford was an Alabama running back and he transferred to Cincinnati. There's a reason that he was there. Again, running back proportions are really good. 5'10", 210, versatile in terms of, yes, he bailed Ritter out a lot in the passing game by being lithe, by being agile, by being athletic, being able to go short or turn that speed on and go deep and play receiver down the sideline. On a wheel route, he looks like Golden Tate, right? He looks like a 5'10" compact guy that's just outrunning people and going to catch the ball down the field. As a runner, has some patience to him, not a ton of wiggle, but that's not really his game. The thing that stands out to me about Ford as a runner is he has like an unlimited top end, right? He's one of those guys that builds speed. He's not hyper quick. He's quick, but he's not hyper quick. He doesn't have instant acceleration, but he's fast. And the farther he gets down the field, the faster he is.
So It's like a 94 S-Class where it's like, it just steadily keeps going.
To me, it kind of reminds me, I grew up where it's snowy and like snowmobiles have an infinitely variable transmission. There aren't gears, right? You just wind it out, right? And it's a conical drive belt. And like, he'll barely miss the linebacker. And then, the safety's coming in and he'll break the safety angle. And then that corner from the other side of the field, he's feeling Randy. So he's going to come over and try and get up. Oh, no, now we're 7 yards ahead of everybody. And he just keeps opening it up, where a lot of running backs, some wide receivers, they can get to that top speed very quickly, but there's no other gear after that. They're at that speed. And if they don't have a gap, they're not getting a gap. He just keeps manufacturing gap. And if you look at his highlights or even his tape, he has multiple 79-yard touchdown runs. Like, I don't know why that's his number, 79 yards, but he has multiple.
It's because they get a 1 yard gain on first down, and then he breaks it off on second down. That's why.
Yeah, so again, guy that can contribute as a runner, contribute as a receiver is what I would say of a good pro size in terms of being able to, take punishment. And that speed, man, you get that speed on the outside. And it's not just speed. He runs with power. He runs between the tackles. He does it all. And people are like, what's your comp? And I'm like, I don't like comps. But again, it was like 5'10", in between 210, 220, caught the ball real well, was real fast.
He's just solid all around.
There's some really good running backs in that mold. And Ford's just kind of, again, quietly under the radar. He's in the mid hundreds in terms of ADP. He's a day one plug and play pro running back. So again, great value.
I forgot to tell you, by the way, that I was on a walk with my wife through a neighborhood, and I actually saw somebody, one of my neighbors who's kind of a collector, and he actually just got like a pristine mid 90s S-Class, and it's sharing a driveway with a 78 Bronco and like a 71 Super B. And I'm like, oh my God, this would be EJ's like favorite person on planet Earth. Just collecting random cars.
We would have conversations. Yes. Yes.
I don't think I've actually seen a Super B in the wild other than that one in like my entire life. I don't know. I don't know about you, but
wild is a wild is the term, right? You see it like you walk into somebody's really nice like 3-car garage in the South and they have a Super B and you're like, oh yeah, of course. Like, why wouldn't you? But like parked at a, like Walmart?
No. Let's go to wide receiver, where we have a cornucopia of freaks in this class. You kind of have a tie for your top spot here in terms of chalk all ceiling guys, which are Drake London and Christian Watson. Watson in particular, we've talked about a lot. My pick was Watson because 6'4", 210, 4'3", jumps out the gym.
All the things.
Because all the things. Drake London is somebody we haven't talked about as much. I don't think he has the same top end speed as Watson, but when you factor in size, very fluid hips and good feet for that size, he's proportioned very close to like a Mike Evans, Brandon Marshall, just big, physically imposing, way more fluid than he has any right to be for his dimensions. And, you and I were kind of talking about this before the show, where it's like, okay, if he hits his ceiling, he's Mike Evans, which there's only been like a couple years throughout Mike Evans' very long, illustrious career where he was considered like a top 3 wide receiver in the league. But puts up 1,000 yards every year, very reliable red zone target, Mr. Consistency for an entire generation. And you look up and by the end of Mike Evans' career, he is going to be one of the most prolific wide receivers of his generation. Not even probably, is a Hall of Fame lock at this point, in my opinion. So if we're looking at Drake London, where it's like, oh, his ceiling is Mike Evans, and like some people in their head, it's like, well,
what's
Mike
that?
Evans? It's like, okay, well, that's a Hall of Fame receiver. So if your ceiling is a Hall of Fame receiver, you should probably be a top 10 pick.
Yeah, the body control at his size is what sets him apart. He's not slow. When we say he doesn't have the same top end as Watson, so 80% of people in this class don't have the same top end as Watson, especially not at the size. But you watch what London can do with his body all over the field, down the field, even like, let's be completely honest about USC's offense this year. It was hot trash.
Yeah.
Like it was London and
once he was gone.
Yeah. A few other things. They struggled mightily. So their offense was, before he was gone, get the ball to London however we can do it. And they did that in some good ways and some really like, oh, geez, we're just going to force it ways. And he made that look okay. His ability to twist around, catch a ball, spin off a guy in the backfield, and then accelerate is special. You don't see that kind of body control. You can see the basketball player in him all the time. In fact, one of the clips I posted about him, I said, this is the basketball background right here. This is the outlet pass and run it up court. And he's done that a billion times. And his little behind the line receiver screen looks just like that. It's like, put your hands up, catch the outlet pass, dodge guys. I just don't have to dribble. Same body mechanics if you're familiar with basketball. But the idea that, people are like, oh yeah, he's Mike Evans. I'm like, what do you mean? Oh yeah. Like Mike Evans is a guaranteed in my mind. And if you look up his stats, you can make a very strong argument for first ballot Hall of Famer, like one of the most consistent and best for the longest period of time modern wide receivers there is. Drake London, again, we're talking about an all ceiling team. That's the name of the episode. That's his ceiling. If he hits it, That's the best you can hope for, spending a high pick on a wide receiver.
And he was doing that, by the way, with a quarterback situation. Like, okay, Jameson Williams at Ohio State has Justin Fields, and then he goes to Alabama, and he's got the Heisman winner at quarterback.
Yep.
Like, Christian Watson had like a year of Trey Lance. Some of the other receivers in the top, like Garrett Wilson. Okay, CJ Stroud is going to be a first-round pick. Like, you look at the quarterback situation for Drake London versus the quarterback situation for a lot of these other top receivers. He did a lot with very little. And I think when he goes off the board at 10th overall to the Jets, I'm going to be a little bit arrogant about it because I said a very long time ago that he was going to be a top 10 pick, and people jumped down my throat and they said, well, no, the Ohio State guys and Jameson, they're all going to go ahead of him, and then Jahan Dotson's going to go ahead of him. I was like, I'm sorry. Do you see this gigantic human being that moves like that was the centerpiece of an entire offense? If his ankle's good, he's going top 15, almost guaranteed.
Yeah, if the medical's fine and Jahan Dotson gets drafted ahead.
That was a very common take.
No. I'm saying currently with what we know now. Now, I didn't say that. But with what we know now, if that happens, like, we riot. Like,
yes,
that's we riot.
And this is like, nothing against Jahan Dotson. Solid player.
Really fine player. This is not trashing Jahan Dotson. This is like what you might get. And look, the NFL is big on potential. We see it every year. Pass rushers, quarterbacks, wide receivers. People draft linebackers. Think about Edmonds when he went to Buffalo, right? It was this guy's loaded with physical potential, and when he guesses right, it's amazing, and when he doesn't, it's an 80-yard touchdown because he didn't fill his gap. It was all about potential, and the NFL loves potential. And if you think Jahan Dotson has more potential than London, you and I are seeing very different things.
I love Dotson on day 2 as like Mr. Reliable slot receiver. Mm-hmm. 3rd and Dotson, I'm all about it.
Yep.
If he's a top 60 pick, I'm okay with that. Sure. In that role. Drake London is a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, if Dotson goes in the top 20 and London falls out, we'll know the medical is not as clean, and people are, as much as they love potential, they hate risk. So as somebody saw a red flag on the medical and said, I'm not comfortable with that.
Which is possible. I mean, broken ankles are a finicky thing. It's very possible.
Could be. But if the medical turns out to be clean and he goes on to have a very solid NFL career and he was picked a ways after Dotson, I think people will come to regret that. That's what I'm going to say about that.
In terms of down the board guys that you and I both like, Tanner Connor, who we've talked about endlessly on the show, so we won't belabor the point. But 2 others that I think are kind of in that similar like giant dudes who are freaky athletic category. We've also got Isaiah Weston from Northern Iowa and Alec Pierce from Cincinnati, who's starting to get a little bit more publicity now at this point, because I feel I did actually kind of think it was funny how, if you noticed, the Desmond Ridder hype train and the Alec Pierce hype train took off at the exact same time. And I think it's because people finally started to watch the Cincinnati offense of like Desmond Ridder made a really nice read there. Okay, that's a great deep ball. Who caught that? Oh, Alec Pierce. What did Alec Pierce run? Oh, he's 6'3", 211 with 4.41 speed and a 40.5-inch vert and a 10.9 broad, and he's got 33-inch arms. Like, okay, maybe we should be a little bit higher on this guy. Let's see what he did at the Senior Bowl. Oh, he smoked people there too. Okay, maybe we should be a little bit higher on this guy. I think Alec Pierce is that classic like riser, however you want to phrase it, in the draft cycle, which for teams, there are no risers and fallers. They've had their grades in months ago. It's more of like a riser in the media once everybody gets around to watching them, myself included, where we all collectively realize like, there's a gigantic human being that runs low 4.4 and jumps 40 inches and was the number 1 receiver on a playoff team and was productive and was beating Alabama corners in the playoff game. We should probably pay attention to that.
Yeah, and is competitive with the ball in the air. Folks around Chicago will tell you, because he was a Chicago local guy in high school, Glenbard West, I think. Don't crush me if I got his high school wrong, because I have enough trouble remembering everybody's college. But was a 3-sport athlete there, noted for being a freak athlete way back in high school. And
I'm going to guess volleyball. I'm going to look it up while you talk.
Just it was track, basketball, and football, maybe. Anyways, Matt Bowen, who's in the Chicago high school scene as a coach, was like, oh yeah, Alec Pierce. Everybody's known about Alec Pierce for a while. It just continued to grow and get better. And then, ended up at the right place at the right time with a Cincinnati team that was on a roll. And it, again, is loaded with talent, and still stood out, right? Still was easily the top receiver on that team. And the gap between a guy like Christian Watson, who we've been on the hype train for a while, and Alec Pierce is a lot less than you might think. They're similar in terms of athletic potential, and in terms of production, like Pierce was more productive in a more prolific offense for sure, and a more pass first offense, but like that gap is not large. We talk about how thin that gap can be between players at the top of the draft and players even out of the draft. But here we're talking about two guys that are in, second round, varying levels of second round consideration, who are both really tall, really fast, can jump out of the gym, competitive with the ball in the air. Like they're pretty similar. My guy is much farther down the board than yours. Not a top 100 guy, possibly even a UDFA, but I think somebody will probably take a chance again, just in the late rounds. Height, weight, speed. And that's Isaiah Weston from Northern Iowa. So Isaiah Weston, not as crazy prolific, but definitely had his moments. 6'3", 214, 4.42, a 10-yard split of 149, vertical of 40, broad of 11, all the tick marks for numbers that are, going to get you noticed as an athlete, especially at that size. Now, his agility grades, not as good. Shuttle 4.4 and a 3 cone of 7.27, which is not a death sentence, but it's not great for a wide receiver. The one that sticks out to me that people aren't going to talk about is usually when you get receivers that are tall and somewhat thin like that, they're not great at the bench. And many of them just didn't even do it this year. A lot of people didn't do bench at all. Weston did it. 20 reps.
Yep, that'll do.
6'3", 214. Long levers, he did 20 reps. So again, big, strong, fast. Like somebody's going to grab this guy. And if he gets with a good wide receiver coach, gets put in a role, everybody's talking about Pierce as a Marquez Valdez-Scantling replacement in Green Bay, right? Well, what if you waited 5 rounds and got Isaiah Weston to do a very similar thing? Like, you'd have a lot of the same role. And if he develops, again, gets with a good quarterback, gets some deep balls as a rookie, like people are going to be like, who is Isaiah Weston? You're going to be like, I'm a bootleg listener and I know where he came from.
Yeah, there's so many late round freaks in this class. And I know we've said it before, but it's a product of how the pandemic kind of affected college football and kind of forced this mass coalescence of talent into this one class. There's a lot of dudes, and this is a byproduct of it. Is you're going to get the. Why do you think so many teams are willing to move down and trade down in this class and collect day 3 picks? It's because they feel like they can get these freaks on day 3 over and over and over again. Now, would I have done what the Patriots did and traded Shaq Mason for a 5th rounder? No, but teams are doing that. Yeah, they're trying to get as many picks as they can on day 3 in this class. 4 guys like Connor and Weston, and probably not Pierce. He'll go in the 3rd round, but there's a lot of talent. Speaking of super duper deep late round gems, possibly UDFA. Let's go to tight end. You and I were in agreement that Greg Dulcich, if he hits his ceiling, is going to be a very quality tight end in the league. He is not anywhere close to Kyle Pitts as a prospect. He might not even be good as Freiermuth, but he's still a very, very good prospect in terms of height, weight, physicality. Not the fastest guy, but enough speed.
His speed is surprising. Again, he's not the quickest guy. He does not get up to speed quickly.
I don't think the time does him justice because of how a 40 is structured. Like
when you look at him on the field, the thing that will surprise you if you keep watching, not just the highlights, but the full tape, even balls he didn't get thrown, because again, there were definitely routes he was open on that got left on the field. His acceleration again through the second level and into the third level is, whoa.
Yeah.
For a big guy, he's really moving. Again, he's not Jalen Waddle off the line. Nobody's going to mistake him for that. But when he starts moving, especially against like a linebacker down the seam, forget it. He's, 6, whatever he is, 5, 6. And
6'4.5", 245, I think.
B, he's motoring at that point. So if quarterback puts it anywhere near him, you're talking about a 25, 30, 40-yard gain if anybody catches him. And that's going to be the thing that stands out early. It's not that he's a standout blocker or that he's going to be really great in the short game. He's functional in the short game, but you get a couple of those seam routes where he gets loose on a linebacker and, he's 5 yards past them when he catches the ball.
Yeah, I want people to ignore the 4.7 flat because he's one of the guys where it doesn't, like, this is very much a trust the GPS, because when you think about how a 40 is run, you can shave off 200ths of a second if you get a good start. If you don't have a good track start, some of these guys that have run amazing times, like Alec Pierce, I looked it up, volleyball, basketball, track. If you have a track background and know how to get out of a stance with track start and know the mechanics of running, you're going to run a lot faster than somebody like Dulcich, who doesn't have that background, is not used to, lining up in a 4-point stance and getting out and, doing the whole, runner's gait and everything like that, just shave off a 1/10 of a second. Like, he's not 4.7 in pads. You watch him on the field and he's GPS, he's clocking very high speeds in pads, which is what matters. So he is a seam ripper. He's not a track runner. There are some guys that are both. He's only one.
And he's the one you want if you're drafting football players.
He's the one you want. So again, he is fast. I do not have as high a grade of him overall, like I said, as I did on Pitts, obviously. And also not on Freiermuth, because Freiermuth could block his ass off. Mm-hmm. But in terms of ceiling, all ceiling team, somebody at that size, that weight, that length, that speed, if he hits a ceiling, very high quality player, at least in the receiving game, which is what we're going for here. Now, potentially even higher ceiling than that. And that's saying a lot. Armani Rogers, who ironically had his pro day because he was not a combine invite at UCLA, because they invited a whole bunch of prospects to come, work out with them that don't get their own pro days. He was a quarterback at UNLV and Miami, Ohio, converted to tight end, went to Shrine Bowl, literally never ran a route in his entire life till he got to Shrine Bowl. That was like his first day ever running a route. Immediately started dominating people because he's 6'5", 230, runs 4.58. I believe he had 10. Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. He had 10.10 in the broad, which is
at 230.
Unbelievable. And I actually think it was more than 230 because he was 230 at Shrine. I think he put on even more weight before pro day because he's trying to bulk up to play tight end. And he had a 34-inch vert. He is just an unbelievable athlete. And when he showed up at Shrine and was just ripping these D1 DBs a new asshole every single practice, he was one of the most intriguing players at that entire game. And you and I were sitting on the sideline watching him. When he opened up, it's a different kind of speed than you.
He looks like a wide receiver.
It's breathtaking. And so when we're talking about all ceiling, if he hits his ceiling is higher than Greg Dulcich. Mm-hmm. It just straight up is. But because he's never played a snap at tight end in a real game in his life, he's learning a new position, all that kind of stuff. He's probably going to be a 7th round pick at best. Most likely going to be UDFA. But somebody's going to look at those times because every scout was at UCLA and be like, we need to make sure he doesn't hit the market. We need to take him in the 7th. So I would still bet he's going to get drafted. If he hits his ceiling, he's going to be Darren Waller, Julius Thomas, that kind of guy.
Yeah, and it's not an unheard of path, right? We've seen quarterbacks hit the league and turn into tight ends, and he played quarterback for most of his college career. Went to Ohio University, not Miami of Ohio, so he's a Bobcat.
Oh, sorry, I had that backwards.
Nope, he was a Bobcat. And again, at his size, like he was starting the bulk up process at Shrine, so he was still in the sort of mid 220s range, high 220s range. He looked like a wide receiver. There's plenty of wide receivers. I mean, we just talked about guys that are, 6'3", 214. If you're looking at a guy that's 6'5", 220, it doesn't really look any different. And he ran like a wide receiver. So it all made sense. And it's like, oh, wait, tight end. All right. And to see somebody running routes, and then we got a chance to sit down and interview him. And we're like, so, like, how's your tight end training been going? Because I don't know. I think we both assumed that he had already started training before Shrine Bowl. And he was like, no, that was the first ones. And we're like, first ones what? And he was like, no, that's the first routes I've ever run. And we were like, today on the practice field at UNLV, it was the first routes you've ever run? He's like, yeah, I've been a quarterback. And we're like, but you didn't like go to Exos or go to Athletes Performance or go to the Tight End Summit or something and run some routes? You haven't been running routes at your local high school? Like nothing? And he's like, no. And we just, both of our jaws hit the floor in unison. We were like, okay. I mean, fathoming how difficult that is.
Yeah.
The folks are trying top quality football players, and he was dusting them on day one, never having run routes. Yikes. That's an all ceiling player right there. Give him a while, right? It's not going to be a 6-month thing. It's not probably even going to be a year thing, but a year and a half from now, 2 years from now, end of his second season, maybe he spends the first season on the practice squad. That's fine. End of year 2, this is a guy, if he continues to build his athletic resume, gets with the coach, has a little bit of patience, he's going to make some plays.
Even if you don't believe in him as a blocker, just keep him at 230 and just leave him at wide receiver. Because there's 6'5", 230 wide receivers.
Call him a power slot. I don't care what you call him. There's a lot, if we're being honest, there's a lot of tight ends in the league that can't block at all. And a lot of tight ends in this class that can't block at all. So even if his blocking is get in the way at best, if he's able to run routes, really good routes at 4.5 at say 230 or 235, I don't care what you call him.
Yeah.
you're going to call him productive.
He's got Ravens written all over him. Personally, for me, because they love to take these kind of guys in day 3 where they're like, we don't know what you are yet. We're going to figure it out. Give us a few years.
You know what I thought about?
Huh?
The Giants.
With Dable?
Uh-huh.
And just be like, hey, go study Dawson Knox and do everything he does.
Or a combination of, so there was a guy here, Evan Engram, who weighed what you weigh, but is shorter.
Yeah.
Watch his college tape and do some of that, because that's what got Evan Engram drafted. And Dable's going to understand how to use a tight end too, which is what Armani Rogers is going to be. He's going to have some creative formations where they come out in big, and Armani Rogers is kind of hanging out as like the third guy off the end of the line. And they're like, oh, they're all lined up to row. No, anybody keep up with that guy? No, nobody can keep up with that guy, because we were in heavy trying to stop him. Oh yeah. And our linebacker doesn't run 4.5 flat. Oops.
Well, even if you can keep up with him, you probably can't out jump him. So
no. Yeah.
A
lot of potential.
He's going to be fun. Let's get to offensive tackle now. Again, another group where you and I had almost entirely different lists. Some guys we have projected to different positions as well. Your tie for all ceiling team in terms of chalk guys are Charles Cross and Bernhard Ryman from the Chippewas, and then my chalk guys, I got Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa. You personally see Penning as a guard. I see him as see if he could play tackle, and if he gets completely abused, then kind of move him inside. But he's just so damn athletic and long and big that I at least want to try him at tackle. And he's working with Duke Manyweather, who tends to fix a lot of issues with people. And believe me, Penning has issues. He has so many issues. But if anybody can fix it, it's Duke. I just want to see what he can do at tackle first. And if it doesn't work, fine. You can kick him inside. He can basically be like Alex Boone, but more athletic. But I just want to see what he's got outside first.
Yeah, I understand that, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people. A lot of people tell me I'm wrong, or tell me that their opinion is that Penning is a tackle. We have a similar opinion about Penning. You're just stronger about wanting to see that first. I think Penning can be a tackle. Look at the building blocks, right? Size, speed, crazy athletic size. But we all know about crazy athletes that don't play a position particularly well. It doesn't have to be tackle. It could be linebacker. There's a long list of those in the league. I think his traits, especially his demeanor, make him a very good starting guard real quick. Whereas tackle, he's going to have to continue to work, and he could be very good there. Is his ceiling at tackle, since we're talking about ceiling, as high as his ceiling at guard? No, I think his ceiling at guard starts off with, oh my God, and gets better. I think he to me gives me a lot of the second coming of Richie Incognito vibes on the field. Like his demeanor, his absolute physicality, his snap out of his stance in terms of how quick he is, which you need at guard. Because again, the distance is shorter. That's kind of the idea. Less space to manage, but it happens faster. It's in your face quicker. I don't think he'll have any trouble with that based on his athletic profile. And look, he likes to drill people. And so to me, that lends itself to being a great guard very quickly and could be a good tackle or maybe a great tackle, but it would take longer. Now, depends on your value and worth in your scheme, but no arguing that this is a big, angry dude who's a really good athlete. My two, Cross is so good right now, and I don't think he's as good as he can be, and that makes a ceiling guy. But I can't leave Bernhard Raimann off, because when the pandemic started, Raimann was a tight end.
Yeah. Gained 40 pounds in 1 year. Can you believe that?
I can. The crazier thing is that his transition from one position to another happened in a time of the least amount of contact, and he's already as good as he is. And he's crazy athletic. He's got gifts upon gifts to be able to play tackle really well. And the thing that stands out to me is you can actually watch him learn on tape, like in the course of a game. In fact, and I'll raise my hand as having embarrassed myself pretty badly, was watching tape late one night, and Raimann was last on my list. And I got through about the first third of the game, and I was like, man, this guy's the same thing you said about Penning. This guy's got a lot of tools, but he's got a lot of issues. I think he might be a better guard. So I snapped off a message to our good friend Brandon Thorne via DMs and Twitter and said, do you see Raimann more as a tackle or as a guard? And then didn't bother to say anything else because it was already like 11. Then I watched the other 2/3 of the game and watched him literally fix all of his issues from the first third of the game and handle things easily by the end of the game that were plaguing him badly in the first quarter. Like outside speed rushes with a soft shoulder. Like he was getting massacred in the first quarter. And I was like, man, he's got, and by the end of the game, he's playing lockdown left tackle and didn't even come close to getting beat again by those moves multiple times. And so it's like, you can watch this progression and you realize he's so young in the position. He's still seeing moves for the first time almost every time he goes out. Defenders are throwing new stuff at him and he's having to like learn on the fly. The fact that he's in the top consideration for one of the top, he's my 4th ranked tackle in this class. We already put out our tackle rankings, is astounding. Like it's crazy. He's so young in the position, so athletic. Like that's a ceiling guy wrapped up. So I couldn't leave him off the list.
He was he got so good by the end of the year, to your point. When you average out his hurries allowed, by the end of the year, it was less than 1 per game. And they only allowed his quarterback to be touched 4 times all year, if you average it out the whole year. Like, so by the end of the year, he was literally unbeatable, which I know we're talking about level of competition, blah, 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 blah. But like he went to play at Death Valley at LSU and dominated them. So he played against top competition and still was great. Went to the Senior Bowl, just like Penning, had some reps where it was kind of a wild ride. I do want to make one little note here. A big thing that I've noticed over the last few years in terms of a offensive tackles transition to the league is who are they working with the summer before they go to the pros?
Yep.
There's some coaches that, to be perfectly honest, I won't name names, have fucked guys up.
Yep.
You look at Andrew Thomas and who he was working with. You look at Mekhi Becton and who he was working with. He was working with Duke. Rashawn Slater, Pro Bowl tackle as a rookie, working with Duke. Duke is gold standard, and Penning is working with Duke. I do wonder if part of the reason why Ryman struggled a little bit in Mobile, and I went back and I kind of looked at his sets in Mobile versus his sets when he was at CMU, and I was like, this looks different. I think somebody was fucking with his stance, or not his stance, with his set.
His sets, yeah.
Like he was firing out and kind of doing like this Howard Mudd type stuff where he's like, really almost trying to like short set dudes at every possible occasion.
Cut him off.
You just cut him off immediately, and it's like you weren't doing that in college. You were
mirroring.
You were doing more of an angle set, letting him come to you, using your hands, all that. Like he was doing normal, good technique by the end of his time in college, and then all of a sudden he goes to the Senior Bowl and like he's taking really sharp sets and going out there and just trying to fight people. And I'm like, that's gonna get you beat in the pros, just like it got Andrew Thomas beat. And Andrew Thomas, by the way, was like unbeatable at Georgia. Goes to the pros where his feet were different, got wrecked, and it took him like 18 months by his second year to like get right and get back to what he was doing. So there are some coaches where they are developing a little bit of a history of they tinker too much with people that have a good thing going. And there are guys that go in the league and they suffer from that, and it takes them a while to get better. I really hope that Ryman, for as physically gifted as he is, goes to somebody that will get him back to doing what he was doing in college, because he was good at that. Take the angle set, let people come to you because you're so damn big and strong. They're not going to go through you anyway.
And you move so well.
Like you don't need to go attack people. Like the people that need to go attack people are the ones that like can't move. And he can
and want to use length and have really long arms and want to get in people, make contact early. I get all that. So end of the story the next morning, because it was super late by the time I finished the tape, and I had to send Brandon a message and be like, okay, so I'm an idiot. He's a really good tackle. Please disregard my last. Yeah. I had to put my tail between my legs and eat my little bit of crow and say, yeah, I should have finished watching the whole tape before, read all the way to the test before doing anything. Yes.
We've all had that though, where we get to like the middle of the first quarter and we're like, what are we
really
here?
doing here?
Yeah.
And I'm sure Brandon, actually, he's good. He answered me back and he was like, I was wondering about that. And he was like, yep, I get it. I totally get it. You're on. Like your first comment was on and your second comment was on. So you're all good. I was like, okay, I feel like an idiot.
In terms of down the board guys, you and I both have different names as well. Zach Tom for you, as well as Matt Willetsko from North Dakota. Zach Tom for me is my OT4. Willetsko, I think I have in the tier below that, if I remember correctly. And then I have Braxton Jones from Southern Utah.
Somebody just asked, who was your Stone Forsythe this year? It's Zach Tom.
Zach Tom's...
He's not
in terms
talking about
of like
same
me
type
being
of player.
like higher. I'm higher on Zach Tom than most people.
Yep.
But boy, they are so different. They are so different.
Not the same player at all. And not my two are not on the ceiling list for the same reason. Zach Tom is because he's sort of a tale of two cities right now. His pass sets are crazy impressive.
Yeah.
Like his pass sets are enough to make you think, like you do with Penning, I just want to try him at tackle. Like, he doesn't have ideal tackle dimensions, and a lot of people are like, oh, it'd be a great guard. Same argument I made for Penning, but his pass sets are so pretty, unlike Penning's, that I'm like, I just want to see it. And yes, does he have issues? A lot. That's why he's not in the top conversation for most people. I understand you putting him up there, but I'm tempted by his pass sets because they are gorgeous. And Willetsko is not that he has terrible pass sets. It's that the thing that stands out, and the reason he's on my list, is because he is a rare athlete at tackle. And it's what got him on most people's radar, because people might see North Dakota and go, oh, so, he played with Christian Watson. No, that's North Dakota State. University of North Dakota, not a school that puts a lot of players in the pros. And the reason he got noticed is because he is tall. He is well over 300 pounds, and he is ridiculously athletic. And the NFL's got a trend of taking very athletic tackles and taking a chance on them, because there's only so many guys on the planet that are that big and can move like that. And let's see if we can polish up their issues. And if we can get them late, all the better. We might get a Colt Miller, right?
And you know what's possibly the most impressive part about his profile is his length. 36 and an eighth, which is look at it right now, 96th percentile. There's like 5 tackles in the last 20 years that are longer than him. And the last one that was that long was LaRaven Clark. Except Willetsko is just like a better player than LaRaven Clark when he was coming out of school. So, and Clark, I think, was a 3rd or 4th round pick, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So he's gonna go. He's gonna go.
People will take chances on potential, and when you, again, like you look at a Zach Tom and you go, well, the potential is he's already a pretty good football player. It's not that he's super long. He's really athletic, but it's like, which of the building blocks do I get to put in with Let's Go? It's like, he's got a crazy frame. He's really tall. He's really long. Oh, he happens to be like a 98th percentile, athlete
length
at tackle.
Yeah.
No, I mean, his athletic scores are ridiculous. His RAS
his RAS was 12th out of all tackles since 1987. So
yeah, I mean, so it's pretty soon you put enough blocks in the bag and you go, forget it, just pick him. We'll figure it out. And because if we do, especially if you pick him in the 4th or the 5th or way down the board, and he hits and becomes a functional NFL tackle, you get a discount not only on the first contract, but on the second one too, because just like first round status stays with you and allows you to keep getting richer contracts than you should later on in your career, even if you don't perform, the opposite is true. If you draft a really quality NFL tackle, look at Charles Leno, right? Look at Charles Leno's lifetime earnings. He was a 7th round pick, and rightfully so. He didn't deserve to be higher, but he worked himself into being a very solid NFL tackle. He's on his 4th contract in the NFL now.
He'll be making $30+ million by the time his career is over. So congratulations, Charles Leno.
Which is amazing. But if he had been a 1st round tackle, it would be 3 times that.
Probably.
Yeah.
But even then, he's had the career length that 1st round tackles can dream of. So
yeah, no, it's fantastic. So people will take a shot on Willetsko. So Willetsko is the pure athlete, and Zach Tom is the man. Look at that pass set. I think you could make that work.
I think even in Zach Tom, because again, everybody always brings up the size. He's like 295 and the length and all that. I get that. Even if he doesn't work at tackle, elite guard potential. Like elite guard potential. So I think he deserves to be, in terms of like quote unquote down the board guys for all ceiling team, because even if he doesn't reach his ceiling as a tackle, if he reaches his ceiling as a guard, it's Pro Bowl, which is exactly what we're going for here. And also, by the way, Braxton Jones, speaking of athletes, he was my pick for DTB. 6'5", 310, 35.5-inch arms. Again, we love that length. Sub 540 with a 177 split. Like, he gets out quickly. The agility drills are a little bit sketchy. He's more of a linear athlete than Willetsko for sure, and definitely more of a linear athlete than Zach Tom, excuse me. But in the right system, I do think that you can mitigate, I think, his hip issues a little bit. Just give him some help every now and then if you get certain fronts, or if he's going up against like a super fast 9 technique, like, okay, just give him a little chip help against those guys. But you're getting him on day 3, and he's got the length, he's got the explosiveness, he's got potential. There's just some things that he won't do well, which is stopping speed rushers, which again, for a day 3 tackle, you don't expect them to be perfect. So I think he is a guy that if he hits a ceiling, could be a quality starter in the NFL, which for somebody you're taking in that draft range is more than you could ever hope for.
Yeah, it's money is what that is.
Let's get to guard, by the way.
Yeah, so top chalk we've talked about. Trevor Penning and Tyler Smith are guards for me. Both of them I think are elite guards, and that's why they're there. Plug and play. They're getting plenty of ink, and they deserve it.
And we've talked about them multiple times.
And we've talked about them. Yeah. Now you have my top tackle as your chalk guard.
Yes, and people are going to be a little bit weirded out that I have Ikem Ekwonu as a chalk all-ceiling guard. I put out a film room episode where I said, look, he can absolutely play tackle and play tackle at a high level. But I do think that in a gap system, or a system that runs a lot of power, you're pulling guards constantly, all that kind of stuff, I think his ceiling as a guard exceeds his ceiling even as a tackle. And that's saying a lot because the ceiling as a tackle is super high. His ceiling as a guard is like Quentin Nelson, like if we're being honest. So again, we're talking about all ceiling team of like, if he reaches his potential as a guard, he could potentially be an all-pro every year. In phenomenal talent, great length, great power, probably the best run blocker in this class at any position. Very light on his feet. Obviously has some technical issues to clean up, gets over his toes too much. The Florida State edges kind of beat him up a little bit, took advantage of him kind of making himself off balance a little bit because he's just too aggressive. But as a guard, I think you get protected a little bit from that because he's going against guys that don't have the same kind of runway that a true edge rusher does. So they're not going to be able to set him up as much, and it's more about short setting and getting hands on. And once his hands are on you, you're done anyway. But when you also factor in how quick he is as a puller, how fast he is out in space, like you can actually run him to the edge as a puller. You don't just have to run power inside of a kick out block every time. Like he can get out in space, which he does all the time at NC State. They would pull him as a tackle across and run dart with him all the time because they could. So just taking advantage of that athleticism and that physicality, you put him at guard, he's an all-pro. You put him at tackle, he could maybe be a Pro Bowler if he gets the right coaching. But I'm telling you, at guard, that he's one of the top 5-6 guards in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah, I see the argument. I'm not going to dig into it because I think he can absolutely be a Pro Bowler at tackle. That's why he's my number 1 tackle. But that's
totally could be.
That's why the draft is the draft. In terms of down the board guys, I have Tyler Smith's other tackle from Tulsa as my down the board guard in Chris Paul, because for many of the same reasons you just talked about with Icky, the speed. Chris Paul is, 15, 320, and ran a 4.8, 4.9.
I have it right here. Let me find it.
Like, if you want a guy that can move at speed, has the ability to hit people in space.
4.89, yeah.
Yeah, 4.89 at
3.23.
Yeah, 3.23. That's a crazy athletic feat. So Chris Paul, you're going to get in that sort of, after the sweet spot of guards starts in sort of the mid-third, going down to the third, the fourth, possibly even the fifth. Chris Paul's going to be hanging around down there. You get him, plug him in at guard. And, if you're running, I really don't care what you're running. You could run wide zone if you want to. He could also be fine in a gap scheme where he's using the speed to pull. There's a very good guard there down the board. And if he, I think that's, we talked a lot about guys who are guards and tackles. We talked about in our 10 gems, Kenyan Green from Texas A&M, who they played a tackle, and this is in college, played him a tackle, didn't look great. Played him at guard, looks amazing. And, Paul played tackle for most of his college career. I think he's one of those guys that we classically say might be a better pro than he was a college player. And he was a damn good college player. You kick him into guard. I really do think it fits his sort of natural abilities and tendencies better. Is he going to be at the same level as a lot of the guys you were talking about? No, I don't think he's going to be an all-pro. But again, you're picking him in the 5th round. If he is a very serviceable, functional guard that plays for many years and you got him in the 5th round, great. Money in the bank.
Yeah, and that's kind of the sweet spot of the draft for interior offensive linemen. We see it every single year. From like round 3 to round 5, like you look at how many great guards in the league, whether they were former tackles, former centers, or played guard in college, that go in that range.
That's it.
Every year.
Every year. That's the spot where you go after them, and you don't need to go after them earlier. You can, but typically you're going to go after those tackles because they're harder to get and they cost more draft capital because they are more rare. Yeah, you can make money 3rd, 4th, 5th round going after guards and centers.
So my chalk pick was Ekwonu. My DTB pick for this, in terms of ceiling guys, you're going to get a little bit later, not that much later. He's that classic somewhere around round 3, round 4 is Sean Ryan from UCLA. Mm-hmm. Another guy that we saw live last August, I think it was, at UCLA practice, and we got about 2 reps in, and we leaned over to our guy that was taking a tour, and I literally said to him, I was like, that's a guard, right? And he's like, oh yeah, but he'll murder people there.
Yeah. He was like, oh no. That's what I was going to ask you. What did he say about him? He's like, oh no, he's a guard.
Yeah.
But he didn't say it in a bad way, like, oh, he's not a tackle. Oh no, he is a guard.
Yeah.
It was said in a very positive, like, that's his spot. That's where he belongs. That's where he's going to hurt people. Like, he's a guard. We're going to play him
and he's going to be wanted for like felony assault by week 3 because of what he does to people. He is so fucking powerful.
Yeah. He's
like,
all
oh my
power.
God.
He's got a great smile too after he mashes people.
Oh, he enjoys it. He enjoys the violence
broad,
of the
happy
position.
Dude.
Yeah, but 33.5-inch vert for a guy that is 6'4", 321. Like that's the kind of first step explosion we're talking about here. Like when he fires off and hits somebody, they go backwards pretty much every single time. And it's one of the things that I think people undervalue about, do scouts need to go see people live? Do they need to go to practice? Hearing the pads that's what I think really first kind of turned me out of Sean Ryan as a guard. Hearing the sound of the pads every rep that he took. It's, okay, college sound, NFL sound. Like, there was a visceral difference in the sound that everybody made when they touched him. And usually it was some sort of guttural scream. But he is so damn strong. And I get he doesn't have the feet for tackle. He doesn't have the length for tackle. He's sub 33-inch arms and all that.
No,
I'm not
everybody
asking him to play
knew
tackle.
that. That was we're talking about a lot of these guys, and we're going to be having these debates. Pro teams are having these debates right now. There was no debate. His college team knew it. There was no debate. Every scout that
they
came
played
to
him
UCLA,
at tackle because they could.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Everybody that came to UCLA as a scout was not like, oh, Sean Ryan, maybe I'll play him at tackle. Not after like 3 or 4 reps of outside speed in the Pac-12. They were like, nope. Oh,
Yeah.
I'll play him at guard. Yeah. No. For sure. I'd like to play him at guard. As a matter of fact, can we have him as a guard? Like, by the time they leave and make that, but everybody was just so solid about it. I love that. There was no mystery about it. Like, nope, he's a guard and he's going to be a good one. Like,
yeah,
done.
Now, moving on to centers, there is a little bit of a debate about our top guy. He's both of our chalk pick at center, but he probably could have been our chalk pick at guard too. And that's Zion.
Do you know
Johnson.
why I put him at center?
Because you wanted to make room to put other people at guard.
That's 100% right. I
You
was
wanted
like,
a
how
more
am I
full
going to get
show?
around
Yeah.
this? Yeah, I was like, interior offense. I could do guard and center, and then we could talk about like 6 people instead of 3 or 4. Yeah, no, Zion is a much better athlete, I think, than a lot of people give him credit for. They know he's technically fine. They know he went to the Senior Bowl and that he was snapping and working, done a lot of work at guard. He was definitely making himself ready as a center because that's a very common projection by NFL teams. He's He's an elite athlete. I don't care where you pick to put him. Pick a spot, put him there, let him settle, let him work in. He's got enough experience, enough athletic traits. He's going to be real good. I don't care where he is. He's just going to continue to get better. Just please don't move him all over. Don't put him at left for camp and then right for the season and then halfway through, let's move him to center. Like, don't do that to a young player. Pick a spot. I don't care what the spot is. He's going to be good at any of the 3 interior spots. Doesn't really matter to me. You think he's a center? Great. Have him snap. Give him some help with protection calls the first year, like you have to do with almost any center. Not all, but almost any center. And then just let him develop. And he's going to be really good. The honorable mention would be Dylan Parham, who is a crazy good athlete at Memphis. And, could do guard, could do center, but is just so crazy athletic. Now, down the board, the guy that's getting all the attention is Cam Jergens from Nebraska. And when I watched Cam Jergens, I was like, what is all the fuss about? Because he's wild right now. He is like a wild bull, a wild whatever. He's like a wild animal. He is all over the place. The tape I watched, he had 2, not 1, but 2 15-yard personal foul penalties for a center.
Nebraska, man. That's how they roll.
It is not Nebraska. Like, they were both crazy, undisciplined plays way down the field where he's just driving somebody's face into the turf that was like 25 yards out of the play. So got to be a little bit smarter about that. But I was like, what is it all about? And then I realized he was 25 yards down the field. He got there in a damn hurry. And then you start looking at his testing numbers. And as an athlete, Cam Jergens is silly as an athlete, period. Just as a football player, like, unreal potential athletically. And again, this being the all ceiling team, if he lives up to those athletic numbers with that demeanor, he's like a much faster Ryan Jensen.
I was gonna say if he hits his ceiling, it's Jason Kelce. In terms of movement ability, like, that's one of the very few centers.
There you go. You take Kelsey's movement ability and Ryan Jensen's like absolute, I want to tear your head off mentality and fuse them together. Like, that's the potential ceiling for Jergens. Is he going to hit it? I have no idea. But that's why people are talking about him, is because he's mean as all get out on the football field. And he is top like 2 percentile if you add everything up for an interior offensive lineman in general. He is wild in every sense. If he can tame that a little bit, he can be really, really good.
I mean, 33.5-inch vert, 4.92 in the 40, 171 split. That's the key number there. It's just absurd quickness and short area explosiveness. Just really fluid hips, really good feet. Like, he's, again, needs to be refined, all that kind of stuff. I do think play strength, because he's only 303, a little bit of an issue as it is for most, kind of lightweight centers. But if he goes to a predominantly outside zone system where it's less about that and more about movement and positioning and all that kind of stuff, it'll be mitigated a little bit, just like it was for Kelce. And Kelce, when he was coming out, wasn't as strong as he is now. I think he got some grown man strength as he was in the league. So you hope that Cam Jergens will be a similar story. So if he hits a ceiling, he's Jason Kelce. If Zion Johnson hits a ceiling, I think he's Travis Frederick. So we're looking at 2 all-pro caliber ceilings here. I think interior offensive line, at least at the top, is one of the few groups that you could look at and put up their top prospects against top prospects from classes in previous years. It's one of the more intriguingly strong, if I can use those words, groups in this class, because you have Johnson and Jergens and Parham and all the tackles that are convert to guard, and we're going to know them as guards in the league. Like, it's going to be a sneaky good guard class because of that. Defensive tackle now. Now, both of our chalk pick, how could we not say Jordan Davis? Because obviously Jordan Davis. But we do differ on our down the board picks. You've got Eric Johnson, the second from Missouri State, and I've got my guy Matt Henningsen from Wisconsin.
Yeah, Eric Johnson is not a name most folks will know, even draft watchers. Missouri State, not a power school for sure. Ridiculous athlete at defensive tackle. This is 3-tech size, right? 6'4", 299, 34-inch vert at 300 pounds, broad of 9 feet, shuttle of 477, 3-cone of 733 at 300 pounds, and a 40-yard dash of 488. Now, you were talking about Jergens' 10-yard split being 17 what?
171.
171. Eric Johnson, 163.
Which is quicker, if I recall correctly, than Aaron Donald's 10-yard split, which, if memory serves, was 167.
Yeah. So you're talking about a very compact guy who has good play strength, made plays on tapes. Not that he's just an athlete and a bad football player. Not the case. But some really distinct gifts for his position. So if he's able to maximize that, work on his play strength, again, NFL strength and conditioning has a way of evening a lot of those things out. And it's not like strength is going to be his primary as a 3-tech. It's about penetration. And if he's that quick off the ball and 488 at 300 pounds, he's got what a lot of teams are looking for at that spot, which is go get him.
It's funny how, both of our picks for down the board, ceiling defensive tackles are decidedly different than the physical profile of our chalk pick, because Jordan Davis is like 6'6", 340. And
there is nobody like Jordan Davis.
I know,
as a physical pick.
it's tough to find another guy built like that. I was thinking, do I want to do Noah Ellis? It's like, no, it's not the same. It's
not the same.
Totally different. So I was like, okay, just find a freaky athlete that qualifies as defensive tackle. He's not going to play the same spot as Jordan Davis, but just find a freaky athlete. And I landed on Matt Henningsen from Wisconsin, 6'3", 289. Keep in mind, I'm going to be comparing his numbers to Aaron Donald, who's like the gold standard of, up the field, penetrating 3-techs. Donald was 6'1", 285, so he's bigger than Donald. 37.5-inch vert. Donald was weirdly only 32 in the vert somehow. 9'11 broad. Donald was 9'8". 716 3-cone. Now, Donald had a legendary 711 at 285, which was like absurd. 716 is right there. That's still like 96 percentile. 429 shuttle, which is a full 10th faster than Donald. So Matt Henningsen is an Aaron Donald caliber athlete. Now, not an Aaron Donald caliber player. I personally had Donald top 5 in my mock draft when he was coming out in 2014, back when I first started doing this kind of stuff. I think I had him at 5 to the Raiders, if I remember the draft order from that year correctly. And Henningsen will probably go somewhere in the mid rounds. But when you watch Wisconsin, if you're watching Leo Chanel, you're watching Sanborn, you're watching any of these Wisconsin D guys, or if you're watching any of the Big Ten guys going against Wisconsin, you're going to notice Henningsen make plays, and he's going to make some crazy plays. And that was kind of my first introduction to Henningsen, was when I was watching Leo Chanel, and I was like, who the fuck is 92?
It happens all the time.
He backdoored this tackle and like ran down the running back 10 yards outside the hash, and I'm like, who is that? And it was Matt Henningsen. And I was like, I didn't know he could move like that. And then he put up the numbers he did, and I was like, all right, the tape kind of makes a little bit more sense now. The dude's a little bit of a freak. So if he goes to the right spot that lets him just do that, he's going to be really good.
Yeah, the run and chase is impressive. And it's just, I'm laughing because it happens on so many tapes, right? You're like, I'm here for this guy, right? Here for this guy. I'm here for this. Who the hell is that? Like, look at that guy, would you? And, sometimes it's a draft eligible guy, but the worst is when you're looking. It happened to me this week when I was watching the tape. I was like, man, that guy's making some play. Freshman, okay,
yeah,
gonna be waiting a little bit. Red
or that Alabama edge that you can't stop watching every time you watch a Bama kid.
Yeah, the one whose number I screwed up. Yeah, I transposed numbers.
Top 5 next year.
Yeah, when I was watching Fedarian Mathis, because he's 1 digit off Fedarian Mathis, and I watched tape all cloudy-eyed one morning and got halfway through, and I was like, wait, Is it 47 or 40? Oh, no. That's the worst. But it's great. You see those guys all the time, and you're like, man, is this guy draftable? And in Hennings's case, he is. And again, put him in a system where you're going to ask him to penetrate, where you're going to ask him to get upfield, where you're going to ask him to chase, fire through gaps. He can wreak some havoc as a rotational 3, which, look, if you get him in the 4th, 5th round, that's what he is. It's the kind of guy, not the same physical profile of the player, but in terms of like where they were drafted and what they did early in their career and what they grow into, it's like Greg Gaines, right? Greg Gaines, not super highly drafted, came in, made a ton of plays, like, had his moment in the spotlight this year, and everybody's like, Greg Gaines, like, where'd he come from? And you're like, middle rounds, defensive tackle, he's going to be able to make plays. Henningsen, put him in that system, let him chase. It's going to be a great value.
Yeah. Let's get to defensive end, which again, if you didn't listen to the last episode, when we talk about defensive end versus edge, we kind of qualify them as two different positions. Defensive end, we're talking like, okay, 4 down front, 6 technique, 5 technique, like some people want to call it the base end. If you're thinking about like the Pete Carroll defense where you got a 280-pound defensive end that you can sometimes kick inside and nickel, like those kind of guys that play the run really well. They can take on double teams from tight ends, all that kind of stuff. Our chalk pick for that role, obviously going to be Trayvon Walker, because why wouldn't it be? He's going to be potentially a top 3. Some people are even saying top 1 pick now. Some people are saying like, oh, he's in play for Jacksonville. I still think it's going to be Hutchinson, because it seems like it's been Hutchinson for a while, but considering the athlete that Walker is, it would not surprise me if he goes number 1. I'm not betting on it, but it wouldn't surprise me, if that makes sense. What's the term? It's like shocking, but not surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Trayvon Walker is like obviously going to be our chalk pick for that. He is like a 99.9 RAS. One of the freakiest defensive end prospects we've ever seen. Our down the board pick. Sorry, my cat is playing with my mic in the middle of the show.
Little wants attention.
Wants attention tonight. Our down the board picks differ a little bit. You got Zach Pascal, and I have. Hold on.
You did it too.
I wrote down the pronunciation.
No, you said Zach Pascal.
What is it? Not Pascal?
It's Josh Pascal. Zach Pascal's the receiver for Indianapolis.
God damn it!
I did the same thing. This is so funny. We didn't talk about this. I did that like 3 times writing this. I said it in my head. I said Zach, and I was like, no. It's not Zach. It's Josh. And I'm sitting here, and you said Zach, and I was like, he did the same thing I did. Trust
I
me,
can't tell you how many radio shows, how many podcasts I've done that on. Like, that name trips me up more than any others. And that's,
we all have our own names that
I think I even wrote it in the banner. Oh my God. I'm an idiot.
Anyways, yeah, this receiver, he's going to be a great defensive tackle. No, Josh Pascal from Kentucky. Again, when we're talking about base ends, we're talking about a guy that's going to take on an offensive tackle like head up or on the inside shoulder a bunch. Like that's their role. Can they go outside? Yeah, but you want a guy that's, got some sand in the pants that can go up against bigger tackles on a regular basis. And Josh Pascal is the guy that did that at Kentucky. They moved him inside on passing downs, which is not surprising for a lot of these guys with more speed to go try and penetrate, beat guards on 3rd and long. But, typically he was lined up as that sort of heavy base end and made a ton of plays in the SEC, like lots of tackles for loss. He's got really good size. He's super quick. He's not going to be like down the board. We're still talking about like a top 100 pick, but he's sort of probably down at the edge of the hundreds, the first 100. So it's down the board, but it's not way down the board. Now, I'm not going to steal your thunder. Here's your chance.
Okay. I practiced this. Hey, I made myself
It's a great start.
Double old fashioned working its magic an hour and a half into the show.
Yes.
Okay. So I wrote down the pronunciation because Minnesota is one of the lovely schools that has prospects or players say their name so that we don't fuck it up. So it is Asese Otomewo.
Yes.
Nailed it.
That's pretty solid. I gotta say,
Nailed it.
Especially with the double old fashioned in you. That's good.
And he is a defensive end from the University of Minnesota. He is 6'5", 285. So again, we're talking about big ass base end. 34 and 7 inches arms. So let's just call it 35-inch arms. Yeah. 21 on the bench with that kind of length, which is not easy to do. 35.5-inch vert, which at that size,
at
again,
285.
Not
Unreal.
normal. Very not normal. 9'4" the broad. He got a knee injury in his last game at Minnesota in the bowl game. So he didn't get to work out at the combine, and then he didn't get to work out at the pro day where Boye Mafe put up like ridiculous numbers, and he had his own workout. What's today? Tuesday. So yesterday. And so I reached out to Arif Hassan, our local, Minnesota sports expert, and I was like, "Hey, do you know what he did in this like extra workout?" And so he sent me some numbers, and that was what he did. But he ran the 40 again, but pulled up in the middle of the 40, so he didn't even get to finish the workout. So unfortunately, his entire pre-draft process has been ruined by injuries, whether it was a knee or pulling up in the 40. Like it's been a mess. Not his fault, obviously. It's just been very unfortunate. But when you watch him on tape, you can see that 35.5-inch vert. You can actually see that 21 bench show up because he bench presses tackles off of him. You can see the athleticism. And that was why I was so intrigued about what his numbers were, because I was like, okay, is he going to test like how he looks? Because how he looks is a crazy athlete. And yes, he did test like that. They lined him up at 9. They lined him up at 6, 5. They put him at nose sometimes in sub packages just because like he was everywhere. And the fact that he and Mafe were on the same line is,
and they swapped him. And that was the thing when I watched Mafe first, and it's obviously not uncommon in college or the pros now to swap out pretty much the whole line. It's almost like a hockey line shift, like all 4 guys, both ends and both defensive tackles go out, a fresh new 4 come in. The other thing they'll do is swap ends, and Michigan was the other one that did this with Hutchinson and Ojabo, right? They'd swap, right? But Hutchinson and Ojabo are kind of different players. They have different body types, different styles, pretty obvious when they swap. There was a couple of plays where I was like, man, Mafe is beating the hell out of that guy. And I was like, that's not Mafe's number. Oh, they swapped him on me. Oh, and it's, so I looked him up and it's Otomeo, and I was like, wow, that dude is beating that guy. Like he is beating that guy up. And both of them can do it, because we're going to talk about Mafe in a minute. But like the fact that they had both of those guys at defensive end and just kind of swapped them, like if I was a tackle playing Minnesota, an offensive tackle playing Minnesota, I would have been like, long day. Like,
can you imagine Falele in practice going against these two guys? Like, God, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, for sure. They're both, and the thing is, they do play the same way. They're both big guys. They're both strong guys. They both just are coming on every snap. They're gonna bring it, and if you're in the way of that, it's gonna get old really quick, because they're both big and strong and fast and aggressive, and they're not the like, hey, I'm just gonna try and skirt around you like defensive ends. They're gonna go through you more often than not. Really impressive player. The less heralded of the two, we're going to talk about his more heralded running mate in the next section, Edge, but don't sleep on Otomeo. Like if he heals up and the injury bug doesn't follow him, he's going to be a high quality rotational defensive end in the NFL.
Why don't we get to Edge and talk about Boye Mafe, who was your chalk tier pick, or one of your chalk tier picks.
Yeah, him and Jermaine Johnson, and we've talked about them a lot, and a lot of people have talked about Boye Mafe, especially after his combine workout, but even beforehand, he was on Feldman's freak list. Everybody knew he was going to test really well, and he did play up to it. He's not one of those workout warriors that, he ran that much, he benched that much, he jumped that high. It doesn't look like that on tape. No, when you watch him on tape, you can see evidence of all that. And Jermaine Johnson's the other one, because everybody's like, oh, Jermaine Johnson, he's an edge rusher, right? Well, yeah, he is, but watch Jermaine Johnson set the edge on the run. Woof. like that is a complete football player. And if he continues, his ceiling is defensive player of the year candidate.
I didn't want to say it. I'm glad you did.
No, he'll be in the running. Is he going to beat the guys that are there? Well, maybe not, because that is one of the mutant factory categories in the NFL. Like defensive ends in the NFL, there's pretty much at least one on every team. Some teams have two, and they're all just, whew. So is he going to win it? I don't know. To be considered as somebody that might be in the running, like that's Jermaine Johnson's ceiling if he keeps going at the pace he's going. He has the talent, he's got the size, he's got the frame. So we don't need to talk about those guys too much. But your guy at Chalk was one of my defensive gems.
Yeah, that's Arnold Ebikini from Penn State, who this is one of the guys where I was so intrigued to get the numbers on him because I thought it was going to be good. But I wanted to kind of like back up my Justin Houston comp with numbers and basically see, they're the same person. And they actually are the same person. 6'2", 250. So squatty body, but thick, 34-inch arms, which for somebody who's 6'2", not normal. So not only does he have the leverage advantage for being shorter, but he also has crazy length, just like Justin Houston did, who was a shorter guy, but with length, so who's very hard to deal with, very hard to dig out, both in the run and pass game. 38-inch vert shows up in his first step. 10.8 broad shows up in his first step. 6.95 3 cone. The sub-7 3 cone is one of the biggest indicators of pass rush success in the NFL. So he's got that. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the history of guys that are sub 4.7 in the 40, sub 7 3 cone, 36 plus inch vert, which he's at 38, the broad he's got, the length he's got, the amount of guys with those dimensions, and by the way, his production in a major conference, the amount of guys with those dimensions and production that fail is virtually non-existent. I think he's one of the safest edge picks in the draft because he checks basically every single box you could ever want.
Yeah, so I made him a gem. My explanation was shorter than yours, but we agree that like the thing that we saw on tape when we watched him together for the first time at the Shrine Bowl, is when he gets around that corner, when he uses that 6.95 cornering, right? It is immediate and violent to the quarterback. Like it is a square angle. He is he turns, and then it is 2 steps and it's accelerating to annihilate the quarterback. Not 3, 2, 1, 2, bang. And that's how he rushes, and he wins a lot. So obviously no issues with your chalk pick. Down the board, guy that doesn't get talked about because he's just a little odd dimension wise, and that's Amare Barno from Virginia Tech. So a lot of people paid attention after the combine because he ran a 4.36 40, which I just giggle talking about because shouldn't be possible. A 1.49 10-yard split.
At 6'4", 245, by the way.
For a defensive end. Again, 1.4. We've been talking about, hey, 1.6 is really good. Like, low 1.6s is good. He ran a 1.49 10-yard split. And he's got the 34-inch arms, same as Ebikini. Led Power 5 with 16 TFLs in the 2020 season. Like, this is not a guy that just has all kinds of crazy physical dimensions and never had any production because nobody knew how to use him or he doesn't work hard. Nope, not that guy. Power 5 leading TFL tackler, 16 of them in 2020. 37-inch vert, 10 broad, all the common numbers we've been talking about. Not a guy that's being taught. He's like in the 145 range.
I don't think I've seen anybody put him above like round 5.
Yeah, and he's in like the 145 range. So this may well be one of those guys where there's a medical red flag, there's no field red flag. Again, stuff we don't have access to, but if you look at his profile, you look at his gifts, again, gifts relative to the position he plays. You talked about certain measurements being really important for certain positions. For all the ones that are really important for defensive end, he crushes them. And he's got production too. So something's going on. You usually don't get physically gifted edges, not this kind of physically gifted edges, after the top of the third if you're really lucky.
Well, I think the thing that's working against him is, which is why this is all ceiling team. We're talking about ceiling here, not what he
100%.
is.
Yep.
The problem is what he is now, because he went to the Senior Bowl and got his ass kicked because he doesn't know how to use those gifts yet.
Nope.
So we are projecting if he learns how to use it. That's why this is all ceiling team. If he doesn't learn how to use it, he's not going to last 3 years in the league, because he went up against tackles that are not as good as most NFL tackles he's going to face, and they whooped him all week.
Yeah. When the physical gifts meet the physical gifts, something else has got to give, right? Then you've got to have technique. Then you got to be setting people up. Then you got to have strategy. And that part, obviously not very strong. But again, if he learns how to leverage the tools, his ceiling is productive NFL edge rusher. And if you're getting that in the 4th or 5th round, it's a massive win.
It's not unlike, very different skill set, but when Danielle Hunter was coming out of LSU.
Lots
tools
of
on tools on tools.
Yep.
Didn't know how to use them yet. Went to Minnesota. Coaching staff coached him up. All of a sudden, he's top 10 edge rusher in the league. So that's what we're hoping for here. Is he goes to a coaching staff that knows how to coach him up. God willing, he will, because we love to see talented players succeed and make a lot of money. That's what we're here for in the end. Let's get to inside linebacker now. Going away from edge. And you and I share our chalk pick at the top, which is Leo Chanel, who was one of my 10 gems. We've talked about him quite frequently. And, we got numbers on him from the Combine and Pro Day and all that kind of stuff. And it pretty much confirmed, yep, he's a freak. He's 6'something", 250, moves like crazy. Doesn't make sense athletically. He's a freak. He's going top 60 picks or so. I do think that he's not as good in coverage as several other linebackers in kind of that top linebacker group. So he is a little bit more of a niche skill set, but I could also make the argument that with his athleticism, he could potentially overcome that in the future. And if he hits his ceiling, which is the key word here, if he hits his ceiling, it's Brian Urlacher.
Theoretically.
I know it's a touchy subject for you as a Bears fan.
I mean, theoretically, it's not even that I'm a Bears fan. It's like if you're talking about, if we're talking about the all freak class and then we're taking the top cream of that, that's Urlacher exists there. There are just very few people that have his blend of size and speed. You don't see it. People talk about generational athletes getting pretty close on a generation since he was drafted, and haven't seen anybody else with that level of size, fluidity. They carry folks down the middle, but again, it's a stretch, and it's ceiling and it's coverage. And so I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say I hope so, because man, that was fun getting to watch that, and I would love to watch it again. The down the board picks, you picked Channing Tyndall, and Channing Tyndall's in the mid 80s and Chanel's somewhere in the 60s. So not a huge gap between the two. We'll talk about our shared love for Channing Tyndall. I picked Brandon Smith kind of because we haven't talked about Brandon Smith. And that's a little scary to me because yes, Penn State is a freak factory. They produce really good testers, great athletes. Right now, he's not far behind. Tyndall's 86. Brandon Smith's about 97. So not super far down the list. But Brandon Smith, in terms of talk time or air time compared to a guy like Tyndall, who played for the national champs, almost non-existent. Very few people are talking about Brandon Smith. And I get it. He wasn't on the field all the time for the Nittany Lions. But if you want to talk about RAS, he's 9'9", This is a 250-pound guy. That's 6'3". Not a great bench, but everything else on this card is green. 4'5", 240, 158, 10-yard split, 6'9", 4, 3-cone, 37-inch vert, 10-foot broad, 19 in the bench. And when you look at the highlights, right, his really good plays, it's when he sees it and triggers and does both of those things in the same play, he annihilates guys. He vaporizes people because he's 250 moving at that speed. He's hitting running backs sometimes. Some of the running backs in the Big Ten are like 205, 208. And here comes this 250-pound guy unblocked and hits that guy. And it just looks like a car hitting a raccoon. It's crazy.
Jesus Christ.
Well, no, God. It doesn't look like him.
Well, you live in the woods in Washington, so you would know.
No, I would know, but no, I mean, again, does he do that all the time? No. Is his presence on the field there all the time? No. Ceiling. We're talking about ceiling. You get a guy at that size, 250, that runs a 4.5 flat, and when he triggered, like, is he great in pass coverage? No, he's got some limitations there, but all around the line, he can make plays. He's a good football player now. He could be a great football player in the right hands. And I think about the teams in the NFL that have a very strong linebacking tradition and understand what they want in linebackers. And like if Brandon Smith ends up being a Raven, look out.
I'm thinking Patriots.
He would fit perfectly for Bill. He was one of the other teams we named pre-show when we were talking about it. Steelers have kind of gone lighter and faster. The old Steelers mode of linebackers, yes. The new Steelers mode, they like lighter and quicker. You know, would Tomlin and his staff do a good job with Brandon Smith? I'm sure they would.
I was thinking about that actually, like during the show, since we did talk about that pre-show, and then I was thinking like, well, I don't know. They did hire Brian Flores. I wonder if they're bringing some Belichickian type stuff in there.
And if they did, and Flores got a hold of Brandon Smith, and look at what he did with all the players in Miami in terms of all the zero they ran and everything. Like, oh, yikes. He'd be a weapon. Like, he would be a serious weapon, and nobody's talking about it. Now, Channing Tyndall, on the other hand, is a guy we both love, but he played for the national champs in a very high-profile rotation, so more people have heard of him. But why is he your pick for all ceiling?
Because when you look at Channing Tyndall as a 6'1", 230-pound linebacker, which these days is positively heavy, when you look at some of the linebackers around the league, that's like at minimum average size. 6'1", 230, 4'7", 42-inch vert. Highest vert ever recorded for a linebacker that I can find. 10'9" in the broad. And that explosiveness and closing speed shows up on tape. I remember I was watching the Clemson game when I was watching all the other Georgia guys, and this was like December when I was kind of first getting into, because I feel like most people this year just started with Georgia because they're like, well, they have the most people, so I'm going to start with Georgia. So I watched Clemson. That was the first game, and his first snap in the game was when he was in there, and I believe it was a toss play out to the left, and Quay Walker was the Mike who was closest to it, and he triggered so quickly. He literally overlapped Quay Walker and beat him to the ball from the other side and made the tackle for loss because he's just that damn fast. And Quay Walker is getting a lot of pub this week, by the way. Some people are saying, oh, he's going to be the first Georgia linebacker taken. I like Quay Walker. 6'3", 240, good size, really crazy shuttle, like fluid hips, good feet. Does not have the explosiveness and closing speed of Channing Tyndall. He's good at what he does, but if you want a heat-seeking 230-pound missile that can seek and destroy in the edge run game, and also I think provide a little bit better in terms of coverage down the field than, say, Quay Walker would, and potentially maybe even better than Nakobe Dean would, because Nakobe Dean I think is going to get posted up by bigger receivers. He's only 5'11". I think Channing Tyndall is like a perfect blend between what Nakobe Dean gives you as like a hybrid safety linebacker sub-package player, and what Quay Walker gives you is like a more traditional Mike, like what they had with Monty Rice a couple of years ago. I think Channing Tyndall is like right down the middle, but also he wears a jetpack, and that's why I love him. If he goes to the right spot, he's not quite the same in terms of agility, but I think he makes up for it in terms of sheer explosiveness. But best case scenario, talking about all ceiling team here, Fred Warner. I know.
That's a heck of a ceiling.
I know.
No, I love Tyndall.
I think he hits it.
To be fair, I love Tyndall because he has good size. I actually didn't think he was going to test as well as he did. If you'd asked me to predict his testing numbers, they would have been lower. Good, but lower. And my favorite thing is I think he's the meanest of the three Georgia linebackers. Like, he plays with a chip. He will go after offensive linemen, and happily, in a good way, right? Stack and shed way, a classic linebacker way. Like, if you're talking about sort of classic linebacker play, he's the best of the three at that. Nakobe Dean is the quickest and sort of the most inventive. Quay Walker is the biggest and probably theoretically has the biggest range. But Tyndall is that blend of like, I'm going to stick my nose in there. I'm fast. I'm aggressive. I'm willing to do that. And I make plays. And that was the thing, is I watched all three Georgia linebackers and tried to kind of put them in boxes and separate them and say what makes them special. That was why I sort of gravitated towards, I don't think I'm going for Nakobe Dean up high, because I don't have to. I can wait and get Channing Tyndall later and get exactly what I want in a linebacker.
Yeah, how can you look at this linebacker class with guys like Tyndall, not to mention the other Georgia guys, and Brandon Smith and Leo Chanel, who also might not even be one of the top three linebackers taken,
and Muma
and Devin Lloyd and Troy Anderson. Like, there's a million linebackers in this class. Like, Jack Sanborn's going to go in like the 6th round, and he's a really good player. Like,
yeah, Micah McFadden.
There's so many. There are so many. Yeah. It's pretty. Like, I just don't remember seeing this deep of a linebacker class in like the last 5-6 years.
Inside linebacker feels a little bit like tight end to me for several years, like 3 years in a row. We had like a couple of good tight ends, and then a whole lot of like, well, they might be a good sub package player later. Like, there just wasn't a lot of depth at tight end. It was really like tight end scouting, which hurts me deeply because I really liked tight end scouting for a lot of years. It was like, okay, I did the 3, I guess I'll look at the others. Inside linebacker felt a little bit like that. It was maybe 5 deep, maybe 6. And this year, like, you're getting 10, I think I'm 14 guys deep in the inside linebacker class, and I'm still finding traits that I'm like, I can see where I would put that guy in. Am I going to draft him high? No, but I can wait. And if that's the quality I want for my team, I can get a good draft value and still pick a guy for my team that's going to contribute.
Let's go to corner now, where you and I agree on both the chalk pick and the down the board pick. Sauce Gardner, excuse me, Gordner.
Somebody's sauced.
It's one of us is, at least. Sauce Gardner's our chalk pick, because how could it not be? He is CB1 for most people in this class, I would say. And if he hits his ceiling, he's going to Vegas every single year for the Pro Bowl, unless he's going to the Super Bowl.
I just did my depth study on him, though, and he was kind of my leader in the clubhouse from tape I had seen, but I did my singular watch of Sauce, about 8 days ago now. And he was one of the few guys that with that much scrutiny, like, the glow only got brighter. Usually I start getting pretty nitpicky when I'm doing my single, takedown. That's what I'm there for, is to find the best qualities about them and where they need work. And Sauce Gardner erases, I'm going to guesstimate 65% of the routes he sees in the first 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, they're not even routes anymore.
It's just people getting pushed into the sideline.
Yeah. He's big enough, long enough, strong enough, and loves press. The most supremely confident. And he came out this week and said, I'm the best player in the draft on Twitter. And I was like, I can't say you're wrong. But it doesn't surprise me at all, because you just watch him. People, like you said earlier, watch the scouts go to practice. And this is why you should watch, like, all the film, not just the highlights, not just the cut-ups. Watching that guy walk around pre-snap, he looks like he's at a barbecue. Seriously. He's like, he has really fast guys across from him. And he's like looking back, making checks. He wanders over. He knows in his soul that there is no way that guy's going to beat him. Like, it's not possible in his mind. And he's right, like 98% of the time.
I don't think he gave up a touchdown his whole college career.
Not his whole college career. And the amount of it, just like swag in that guy that you see that from a lot of corners and a lot of wide receivers, but it's not justified. With him, it's totally justified because then he stands up, the guy tries to run, he puts both of those very long arms on him and just mushes them, and they don't go anywhere. And the quarterback takes one look, goes, oh, time to go to the next read, forget it. And somebody, I would give credit if I can remember, somebody put out an article. They talked to coaches about where these players are going to go, and I think it might have been Feldman, and he's trying to predict the first round. And the coach's quote he got on Gardner was, "Oh no, we put some slapdick receiver over there all day and just didn't go at him. He was a dummy. Like, we didn't even try, right? We just lined up somebody we weren't going to throw to anyways because it didn't matter who we put over there. He was going to erase everybody." So Sauce is a guy that I watched in detail and went, I like him better. And to me, his ceiling, if he hits it, is like Revis in his prime, where you just don't even throw at that side of the field. And that's rare. We haven't seen, people say shutdown corner all the time. We haven't seen like true shutdown corners come out in a bit. They're like shutdown corners that need, split safety help every once in a while. Like, Cincinnati has good safeties. They never. One of the reasons Cincinnati safeties look great is because they're playing 2/3 of the field.
Yeah.
Every snap. They never help Sauce. They're like, we don't need to. He's got him. Like, what would we do over there anyways? We'd be bored. So they play 2/3 of the field. And that's why they look so damn good. They're both good players, but like, he is on an island. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it going into the game. Everybody knew it coming into the season. Like, he's a marked guy the entire year. Couple people tested him. He picked him off. They were like, well, that was dumb. I guess we'll quit it. Like, he's so good. It's ridiculous.
And we talked about this in the Gems episode. Sauce is the reason why Kobe Bryant got so much work. It's because nobody bothered.
It's not fair at all to Kobe Bryant. Like, Kobe Bryant is one of the guys that slipped a little bit when I watched this thing. And it was because he's getting thrown at all the time because nobody throws to Sauce's
Where else are you going to go with the ball? You got to throw it somewhere.
You literally can't go to Sauce's side. And that's how dominant he is. So when I say Revis in his prime, it's like he's already showing a lot of those qualities. If he hits his ceiling, which he's kind of close to now, he is going to be a guy that you can literally say, that receiver's yours, go deal with the other 2/3 of the field. And that is so valuable in the NFL.
Our shared down the board pick is Zion McCollum from Sam Houston State, who scored a 10 on RAS, which last year there was a 10 on RAS with J.C. Horn. And, it was one of those like, oh, this will never be beat. And then literally the next year, Zion McCollum comes out. Just listen to this profile. 6'2", 200 pounds, great size. Sub 31-inch arms, but still for a corner, fine, whatever. That's like the one thing that's not crazy elite. But he's got 4.33 speed. He's got a 39.5-inch vert, 11-foot broad, 648 3-cone, 394 shuttle. Every number, like on RAS, green, because he's that rare. Like, he is literally one of one in terms of total athletic profile that we've seen. And that's saying a lot because last year we had a 1-of-1 with J.C. Horn, and then McCollum came out and outdid him. So other than length, he is the ideal corner prospect from a physical standpoint.
So we
talk about all ceiling. It's like, okay, well, if you can weaponize that physical ability and get that physical ability to that ceiling, he is potentially going to be that type of corner like Sauce, where you can't do anything about it because he's too damn big, he's too damn physical, he's too damn fast. And if you just put him on the backside on that boundary corner role and say, all right, just go take away this guy for 4 straight quarters, theoretically, he could get to the point where he could do that.
Yeah, he has a lot more ground to cover than Sauce does, just to be clear for everybody that's going to jump into the comments and say, they said Zion was going to be like Sauce. He could be. He's got a lot more ground to cover in terms of technique and experience and everything else. One of the things he's got going for him, besides all the obvious physical gifts that you just talked about, is he's mean.
Yeah.
Like, he's a bully at corner, and there aren't that many of those. When you get right down to it, it's one of the things that makes Sauce really special is there's not a ton of guys that press, and I mean physical press man. They'll press right up to the line, which is officially press man, but they don't touch. Like it's press mirror, right? And that's fine. That's a totally legitimate coverage. And a lot of guys, even in this class, have a lot of success in that approach. Zion's not one of those guys. He will stand up from you, cross the line, and hit you in the chest with both hands as soon as the snap comes up and go, let's go, because I can run with you. I can stand in front of you. Again, there's not a lot you're going to be able to do to me. So he's more than happy to come up and physically intimidate you at the line. And that's really rare in college football because everybody's worried, right? Everybody's worried that if they miss, that fast guy's going to beat him and they're going to look like an idiot. You have as much gas as Zion does. You have as much length and speed as Sauce does. You're not worried about that. So you walk right up in somebody's face, poke them in the chest and be like, yeah, and a lot of times the answer is and nothing. That's it. It's over. So he's got a lot going for him. Does he need work down the field? Yes. Is he going to see things in the pros that he absolutely did not see at Sam Houston State? A few. He will. All those things will come with time, but he's got all the building blocks to, he's going to go early. It's just a rare combination. He's going to go off the board. He's going to be one of those people that casual fans of the draft or casual fans of their team are going to be like, who from where? And it's going to be like, oh, hang on.
there was a pick he made value down the boundary, which I don't know if you saw this pick where, like literally from the starting gun, he was in this receiver's hip pocket, forcing him into the sideline. And you saw the quarterback like be like, "Oh, there's my one-on-one. I'm just gonna take the go ball one-on-one because what else? What's anything bad that can happen?" Yeah. And like I remember the first time I saw this play, like 3 steps into the route, I was like, "Don't do it, don't do it. He's already beat. Don't do it." And he threw it and he left it like 6 inches inside, and I was like, "That's not a big enough window against a 6'2" corner that runs 4.3, my guy. Is not going to work." And he picked it off like easily, like was not even challenged.
Yeah.
And that's the play that I look at where I'm like, okay, if he can get to the point where he's doing that against NFL receivers, where it's like an unknown or an unspoken rule that, hey, 3x1, you get the one-on-one backside press, it's bombs away.
Yeah, throw it.
It's supposed to be a quote unquote safe shot play. It ain't safe against guys like Zion McCollum.
No, and they're going to try it a couple times. And it's just like Sauce. Eventually people kind of get bored and they're like, how good can he be? Throw a ball at him. Oops.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah. Not more than once if you're smart. So
let's wrap it up with safety. We differ a little bit in terms of chalk pick. You have Dax Hill from Michigan. I have Lewis Seen from Georgia. I would say most people have them in their top 3 to 4 safeties in whatever order you want to put. And then we both, for our down the board pick, have JT Woods and Tyson Anderson. These were actually the 2 that I was going to pick, and I saw you already put them. I was like, all right, I'm just going to leave that.
There we go.
But it's a very intriguing safety class at the top because we talked about it last week. A lot of people have Kyle Hamilton as safety 1, but there's a growing movement for Dax Hill being safety 1.
And they're different players. And I think you can have 2 safety 1s or 3 safety 1s, even with all the safety rules that are important and sort of evolving and multiplying in the NFL. Dax Hill is versatile, right? He is that, I don't want to say classic, but he is in that star mold. He can come down. He can play slot. He can play corner if you need him to. He can play deep safety. He can play up around the line and be the guy that's the disruptor. And watching him do that is a great physical profile. And the theoretical ceiling for a guy like that is Tyrann Mathieu. And that's a great ceiling. But Dax Hill has, again, all the building blocks and that versatility. There are very few guys that can slip sort of seamlessly between those 3 roles, if you want to call it that, like slot, corner, free safety, and strong safety, if we're going with the old designations. the more modern designations, it's still the same thing. Hey, I'm going to take on tight end on this play. I'm going to take a true slot receiver, small, quick speed slot on this. Oh, and I'm going to go play deep third on this one to make sure nobody gets over the top on me and do all three things equally well. Not a lot of players can do all three. A lot of players can do two. Even more players can do one really well, and that gets a lot of guys drafted. If you're one of those people that can do all three of those things and people aren't quite sure which one you're the best at because you're really good at all three, that's Dax Hill.
When I look at Dax myself, I struggle to determine whether or not I want him more at nickel or as a traditional post safety, because I think he'd be phenomenal at both. So I'm personally trying to figure out where I want him, and I kind of had a realization earlier this week where I was like, you know what? I almost don't even care. I'm going to leave that up to the coaches, because the coaches are going to have a hole to fill, and he can fill either one. And it's going to be very much like Javon Holland-esque in Miami when he was a rookie, where it's like, what was Javon Holland? A post safety? Was he a nickel? Was he, a great blitzer that they would bring out? And the answer was yes to all of those things. So he is a guy where I have decided where, even though he could play both roles exceptionally well, his best role is just whatever the team needs in any given week, and he's going to do them very well. And I have pretty much zero worries about him being in the NFL. Like, he's one of these guys where he's
plug and play.
Yeah, he's like one of these 10 guys that you have every class where it's like, I have no worries. Like, Budda Baker was one of them. Jesse Bates was one of them, where it's like you finish your write-up and you're just like, I'm good. You're going to be fine. Doesn't matter where you go. You're going to be fine. And those guys usually end up working out. So.
End up fine.
In terms of down the board safeties, JT Woods and Tyson Anderson, what do you got for them?
If you want players to be too high free safeties, you can get either one of these players late, and one has an RAS of 9.5, one has an RAS of 9.46.
Mm-hmm.
They're, 162, 161, one's 195, one's 209. So again, really similar. Bench 14, bench 12, 40-yard dash 4.36. That's both. 1.5, 10-yard splits. Vertical 39, 35. Broad 10.8, 10.3. 3-cone 6'9", 6'6". Like, these are roughly the same players.
6'9" 3-cone?
Yeah. 6.9 3-cone for JT Woods and a 6.64 for Tyson Anderson.
For somebody JT Woods size, I would have thought of it. Just watching him on tape, I thought a 3-cone would have been better than that. But
yeah, anyway. And again, some guys, I'll take the tape. Like, JT Woods' tape is really good, and Tyson Anderson's tape is pretty good too. And if you look at what these guys do on the field and what they did at the Senior Bowl, Tyson Anderson specific, like, really good at sliding in and then using that speed to undercut routes. Like, if you run anything deep out cutting on either one of these guys, they're going to leverage speed in a way that's not going to make you happy. Probably in the NFL going to end up being a PBU, but if you're unlucky or your quarterback's not super accurate, it's a pick, because they can both diagnose, slide, fill the alley and run support, which is that too high safety role we talk about all the time. And they're going to do it in a hurry. They're both 4.3 guys, like legit 4.3 guys. So,
yeah. And
not like, oh, he's 180 and he's 4.3. Like, again, one's 209, one's 195. Both can hit, both can fly, both can undercut routes in the secondary. They're both going to be available, down the board. JT Woods, I see his evaluation vary, but it's in the 120s. Tyson sometime in the 150s.
I think Woods goes like early round 4, I would say.
Yeah, JT Woods currently on ADP 158, Tyson Anderson 172. So really close in terms of how people are seeing their average values, and not surprising. They're both very capable players. You watch JT Woods on tape, like, it's an explosive guy. The 4.3 shows up. You're like, you knew. You're watching Petra, and he's the other safety.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He popped for me when I was watching Petra, and I was like, who's this guy?
Guy's fast, and then you look, and he's like, come on, he's playing in Dave Aranda's defense. He's got the 2 high safety thing down. He's got the multiplicity of roles, and gonna be available. Mid. I would say like 125 is about when you're gonna start looking at him and go, yeah, we got to get him, or somebody's gonna pick him.
He does not have Petre's feet. I don't want him in man coverage at all.
No,
but as a floater, I'm all about it.
Right. You're looking at either single high, the deepest guy, or deep zone.
I was thinking, like, if he hits his ceiling, this is going to sound like a weird comp. Marcus Williams is who came to mind for me.
I would say ceiling, yes. I think Marcus Williams was more complete than both guys, but you're right. Since it's all ceiling team, like, I don't mind that as a ceiling comp at all for either one of these guys. A lot of tools. Are they going to be your, like, this is going to sound weird too, like alpha safety, like the safety you pin the whole defense on and sort of run it around? No, they're going to be the other guy, but they're going to be a really good other guy.
Yeah. It's like the safety rotation that Kansas City was doing with Matthew and Thornhill and Dirty Dan, where it's like they all had their unique thing that they did. His unique thing is go to the post and be fast. Like, that's what I like about him.
Yep, for sure.
I forgot to mention Lewis Seen, by the way. I didn't talk about him as my chalk pick. The speed shows up, the explosiveness shows up, the physicality shows up, all the numbers shows up on tape, and his ability to come from depth and just smack people. It's a rare thing. It is a rare thing how fast he comes from depth.
Yeah, and delivers, right? And there's speed, and there's guys that are tough, and we talked about all those things, but the ability to hit, and we talk about this during the season, right? We do the bootleg shot of the week, and there are guys that can hit. Like, it's a skill. They deliver force on impact. They might not be the fastest. A lot of them aren't the biggest, right? It reminds me of going way back in baseball, like Hank Aaron, right? Hank Aaron was not the biggest guy. It's about speed. Power is as an equation based on speed, and he had bat speed. And Lewis Seen brings speed down the gap, and he delivers that speed to ball carriers in the force of impact. And it's impressive. You hold your breath on some, you're like, oh, he's going to hit him full speed. Oh, yep, he hit him full speed. He's one of those guys that doesn't let up, right? He runs through people. And as a safety, it's a valuable quality, and a lot of folks in the league like that a lot. So he's going to be a popular guy that goes off the board really early because it's a quality you need in a defense. Want to go over the middle? All right.
You're going to pay for it.
Yep, sure. See how many times you want to do it, and see if you want to do it late in the fourth quarter, or maybe you get a case of alligator arms and don't reach quite as far because, Seen got you on the last one. You want to try it again? We'll see.
He's that classic. All right, you get one backside dig a game. But only one.
Backside dig eraser, Lewis Seen. Yeah, no, I like that a lot. So I don't know. I think this is a fun list. We got to talk about a lot of people that we don't typically talk about. Got to talk about projections, like, hey, what's the best? And I love that. Like you said earlier, we want to see guys succeed and live up to their talent level. And this is a whole episode of saying, what if that happened for every guy, right? Is it going to happen for every guy? Absolutely not. It's not. No. But we're going to see some of these guys hit these ceilings, and it's going to be so fun.
And we're only going to acknowledge our hits and completely ignore our misses. That's we have to be stereotypical draft media and just completely forget when we're wrong. Only acknowledge when we're right.
Okay, we just spent 2 hours on a draft podcast. Not stereotypical draft media. We just talked about a whole whack load of guys outside of the top 50 and top 100. Not stereotypical draft media. There's a list of other ways, but I'll just leave it at that. We are not stereotypical draft media.
And we're also going to have like a 22-hour live stream all 3 days of the draft, which is, as we're coming to find out, not what most people are doing. I guess we're kind of weirdos in that we're willing to sit in a chair for 9 hours and talk about every single draft pick. So remember, we're doing that this year. So if you're not already subscribed to the channel, do so. Come back, say hi on, I don't know, virtually any day of the draft.
Wednesday,
anytime.
Thursday,
we're gonna
Friday,
be live.
Saturday, doesn't matter.
So we're gonna be live and in person. Details coming shortly about where that is and when that is. But you can expect the full draft show to be back this year. And as soon as we get you information as soon as we have information finalized, we will get that out to all of you. So thank you again for sticking with us to the end of a 2+ hour podcast for the second week in a row. You guys are heroes. And thank you once again to the Bootleg Hall of Fame, Murat, Andrew, and Consti for supporting us, and all the 40 patrons that joined this week. You guys are amazing. We'll be back next week with something draft related. Less than 4 weeks out from the big day. So lots more to talk about. See you guys in roughly 6 or 7 days. And until then, later.
Take care.